You're too old, and it's too late to start. Has anyone ever said that to you? Well, I'm here to tell you that it's too late to quit. And oh yeah, you're not too old. In fact, the good news is that it's always the right time to start. You've come to the right place. And me and my friends are going to share our stories of why we will never, ever throw in the towel. Welcome to the Too Late to Quit podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Iftikharuddin. Let's go. Check one, check two. Can you just give me a little Optimus Prime there again?
You humans are very strange on this earth. Where I come from, we would never treat each other this way. I am Optimus Prime. Yeah. A little Optimus Prime for the crowd.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Too Late to Quit podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Iftikharuddin. I'm very excited today because I get to welcome a very special guest. Please welcome to the podcast, Artie Tobia.
Hello, everybody.
I want to tell everybody a little story about how I got to know who Artie is. So many years ago in New York, a friend of mine said, when we were both playing out, we were living in Brooklyn. He said, I met this guy who is running this space, this music space in the village. And he puts these placards on chairs, on the tables, that say, please be respectful, you're in a listening room, please be respectful to the artist. And I'd only heard about that for the Bluebird Cafe in Nashville. And for me, that caught my attention because I said, one, we have to go there, and two, I want to meet this guy because this is somebody who truly understands what it's like when you're pouring your heart out at a performance, at an open mic, at any kind of venue, and everybody is talking. And the fact that there was this pre-frame about please be respectful and come here to listen. And when I met you, I was so taken aback by how it was almost like you'd killed your ego. You were so helpful, you were so generous with your knowledge, and you were also at that time crushing it, touring around with your, I believe it was Parade, that record.
Probably so. Yeah.
And you always give out these really good vibes. And I remember when we first performed with you at this event, I believe some people were talking, and I saw this look come over your face, and the people saw it, and they immediately stopped talking. And the look was, I mean business, but, and I'm going to try, I've been trying to figure out how to describe it, but it's with this kind and respectful authority. And I saw this last night. There was a group of people, and I saw that same look, and there was a kid, and it looked like he was about to fall back from the table. And I swear they sensed this, and they got their stuff together. It's this same thing that I saw when you're on stage. You have this, it's like a natural command, and it's done. It almost makes me think of like the martial arts of like energy exchange, where somebody comes at you and you just sit there and your energy turns theirs around. So I'm so thrilled to have you here in the studio to get to talk to you about your music, your career, and who you are. So thank you so much for coming here.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm going to work on my face and my abundance mentality.
Yeah. So I would love it. One of the reasons why I started this podcast is that I hear a lot of people people have made comments to me over the years. You're too old. You need to stop doing this. This time is past. You must now embrace this lifestyle, which makes me feel more comfortable, and I want you to be doing this. You need to come to your senses.
Yeah.
I was raised in a way that the number that you have associated with who you are, with your age, is essentially means nothing. That it's always the right time for you to go after your dreams. And I was watching you. I know that was your second time as an official South by Southwest artist,
Yeah.
and I was watching the. There are a couple of things that stuck out to me. I recently saw this interview with Sebastian Maniscalco, and he was talking about how when he was on, I think, Jimmy Kimmel, that he had a bunch of people backstage, and he was hosting them, and there was family there, he was taking care of them, and then when he got up and did his 5 minutes, he blanked. And so then moving forward, he realized he needed to have his space, his time to gather his thoughts. Before the show, you greeted us so warmly. I watched you interacting with everybody, and then you hop up right on stage and you switch over into performance mode. I'd love it if you could just talk to us about your journey to and I want to go back further, but I'd love to just talk about your whole approach to performing and who you are as a person and as an artist, and how you make it look so easy when you do that.
Yeah, I appreciate that observation and that interpretation of what you saw, and I guess I do have I'm pretty good at shifting gears, and I have been doing this for a lifetime at this point. That being said, I am far from perfect, and that Sebastian Maniscalco story is accurate as far as I'm concerned. We played a couple of nights prior, and we had been at the venue for quite some time, and all of a sudden I found myself like running around like, oh my God, we got to get on stage. And it was like, and I said, I can't let myself get so distracted pre-show, so I do have a little bit of a ritual, usually in isolation, just prior to going on. For me, not unlike or reminiscent of how I might have prepared, when I played football in high school or college. There's that moment right before you're getting ready to go out of the tunnel, or you're getting ready to go out on the field, and you're getting focused, and you're getting all jacked up and ready to go. And so I'm not vocal about it, but I do have I kind of get my blood going, my blood flowing, and I think I do sometimes surprise myself at just how comfortable I feel. I don't really get nervous to go on stage. I don't really get nervous. Maybe occasionally, maybe sometimes, maybe there might be something that sparks it. But generally, I'm just kind of like, okay, it's time to go. So I don't know if that fully answers your question or what you're looking for, but. Yeah.
Well, if we go back a little bit, can you tell me how, we were talking about this a little bit before we started. Can you tell me how the first musical instrument came into your life? What was the beginning of your music journey?
Well, the beginning of it?
Yeah.
The beginning of it, I had it's such a funny thing. So I was in second grade, I think. Second grade, must have been second grade. And we were in a music class, because we still had music class then, which is part of what we saw yesterday at the thing about Music Matters, trying to get music back in schools. But the music teacher played Crocodile Rock by Elton John. And me and this other kid, I don't know how. I don't know if we just got out of our seats and did this, or if the teacher invited us. I don't know. And we got up and we were like singing along with it. And then there's the wah 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 wah, and I handled that part, and with gusto, and I remember this so clearly. I remember going back to my seat, and another kid in the class said, "Wow, you're really good. You should be a musician." And I said, I can't. I don't play an instrument. And I don't know why I remember that, but I remember that. and oddly, in that school, you started an instrument that year, and I wanted to play the tuba. I don't know why I wanted to play the tuba, but they told me I was not big enough to play the tuba. That it was just too big, so they gave me a clarinet instead. That lasted for that school year, and then we moved, and I went to a different school, and there was no music program, and and so I think that was the beginning of it. I think that endorphin rush that I got, or whatever I got out of that, made me go, oh, I kind of like that, And then fast forward, we had two little nylon string guitars in our house that were my sisters. I don't ever remember seeing either one of them ever play it, not once. But when I was like 15 or 16 for Christmas, my parents, with the help of a friend of mine, got me an old acoustic guitar out of a pawn shop, and that was my first instrument, which I still have. And I didn't really play it that much until I was into college.
So what kind of guitar was it?
It was an old Ibanez.
Ibanez.
Yeah, it was an Ibanez that was essentially a copy of I think a Martin, some Martin model.
Okay.
So it's got like this split back. It's a beautiful looking guitar. But now that guitar's got to be, it was used when I got it, so it could be a 50-year-old guitar by now. I don't know, but it's still a nice guitar. Yeah. So that was my first instrument.
So how do you, because when I met you, I got your CD, Parade.
Yeah.
And I remember it was like it's like if you meet somebody in a foreign country and then they have like a regional accent from where you're from. I remember listening to your stuff and I was like, this is this groovy, like roots rock, Americana feel, but you're from New York. Like I had this idea of what a New York musician would sound like, and it's just like it felt like festival music, like people just vibing out, and it was. I'm so curious from when you got that your first Ibanez. When did you start writing songs, and how did you discover your voice and your sound? What was that journey like for you? You have the reason I say this is that if you go to Artie's website, you can see there's some pretty heavy hitters there that comment on your voice. You have a very unique voice. It's this powerful, just bluesy, very emotional, brings you in voice. I'm curious, like how you discovered all that. What was your writing process, your journey?
So the first songs I wrote, one of the first songs I wrote that I can remember, I was somewhere between 9 and 13. I don't remember. It was a song called The Birds. I hear the birds singing. I hear the birds tweeting. I hear the birds over my head.
Oh my gosh.
And so, because I love birds.
Yeah.
And I remember walking across from my house to my friend's house, and I had to cut through this schoolyard, and then there was a big field. And I remember walking across the field, and I just remember going, I hear the birds singing, I hear the birds tweeting, I hear the birds flying over I see the birds flying over my head. And that has always stuck in my head. And I realize there's some song I was in class in school. Again, it's probably the same time period, and we were learning some historical thing. And we were learning like about Mussolini and Hirohito and like all World War II stuff, I guess. And I came up with this little song about all them. And I just, it was a way for me to remember what I was supposed to remember about it. And so I used it as a tool that way. And then, so that was kind of the start of it. And then somewhere, as far as my voice, I always gravitated toward, Joe Cocker, Greg Allman, B.B. King, so they all, I think, shaped my voice. I actually think I prefer them, and I listen to them, and I love their voices. I think my own, if I were trained in some way, or if I worked with somebody, I think my voice would sound very different. Like, I think I would have a different, but that's who I learned from. That's what and so I do have an ability to move my voice around and sound like other people. So, I've always had that ability, but I think, and I like, you said your voice is unique or whatever you said. It's like, I sometimes wonder if my voice is unique or not, but I just, and I once said to somebody that had one of my records they ever listened to, and I said, well, what does it sound like? And I think this is a big important thing for me, a turning point. She said, I don't know, it sounds like you, like that's your voice. Like, I don't know, it sounds like you. And I was like, oh, and I think that was the first time I felt like, oh, I have my own voice. Because I think early on when we were doing cover stuff, when I first started playing, I think early on I was trying to sound like whoever the song was that was singing it. And so I was moving my voice all over. I think now I do have my own voice and I do stay in that lane. And there was something else to that question you asked me, but I don't remember what it was.
Well, so you get that guitar, you started writing those songs. You said you started making your own songs. When you were you learning covers as well, or can you walk me through, like, what age were you when all of this was, when you started writing?
Yes, I got the guitar at 16. At 17 or 18, still in high school, I guess 17, my friends were starting a band. They said, can you sing? Now, what I knew is I could sing. Yeah. But there was no way you were getting me to sing in front of anybody. Really? And then my senior year of high school, I did a play. I did West Side Story. And I was one of the Jets. And I found myself on stage, singing songs and dancing around and whatever. And then, like 2 years later, my friend who, matter of fact, the same guy that took my parents to the pawn shop to get the guitar, he was the singer of the band. And he ended up moving with his parents. They moved down to Florida, and he went on and had a whole life down there as he's a venom collector of snakes. He's got a whole serpentarium down there. But so when he moved, they're like, do you want to sing? Because I was always with the band. Like, I was like their roadie, I was their security, I was their manager, I did all kinds of stuff with them. Yeah. And so when he moved, he played guitar and he sang. So I wasn't enough of a guitar player, but I said, yeah, I can sing. So I became the singer. I fronted the band as a singer, and I brought a buddy of mine in on guitar, and so we were doing, we were doing covers. We were doing, Allman Brothers, Marshall Tucker, Leonard Skinner, Eric Clapton, Rolling Stones, Grateful Dead. Like, that's what we did. And from there, that band lasted, I don't know, a few years. And then Mark, who you saw playing with me last night, when we've been playing together for, since we're teenagers, but he ended up moving down to Florida with it. It was his cousin that had moved down there. That was the singer in the band. And he moved down there first. And then, we'd bounce back and forth. He'd come up and play up here with me with my next band, and I'd go down there and play with him with his band. And then that second band that I put together, that was when I started writing my own songs. But prior to that, I had written probably 25 or 30 songs, most of which never saw the light of day. But I think you have to do that. You got to get that out. Yeah, it's got to be part of the process. Yeah. And a lot of them were disposable. I have them still. I often think I want to go back into that catalog of those first songs and see what's still valid, and can I now, with the craft being far more developed, can I make any of those viable? But that's when I started writing. Sometime in high school, I think I started writing, and then as the band thing became more, I started writing more, and then after that band, that was Blackberry Jam. It was such a great name. They were Blackberry Jam, and after Blackberry Jam, I had 5 O'Clock Shadow. And that's when I put forward my own songs for the first time. So, it was
And it was funny because my dear friend Rob Garcia, who plays drums, he was the drummer in the band at the time. He still plays with me when he can, but he brought in a bass player one time as we were seeking out a bass player, and the bass player made a comment of, does he write anything about other than girls? And so that was and it was a great comment.
Yeah,
So it's funny
yeah.
how all these little pieces click things into place. And so that comment made me go, oh, and I didn't even realize it, but every song I had was about girls.
Okay, yeah.
In one way, or lost love, or
Sure.
yearning for love, or whatever it was. And so that shifted my writing. That made me go, wait, I know more than just that. What else can I write about? So that was, that was kind of the start of it. And then just sort of, I don't have any problem writing. Like I don't get writer's block. I just write,
Well, what is your process? Because you've got these great bridges, and they're just these really, they feel like when I hear your songs, my first thought is always like, oh, I've heard this on the radio. Like you have this, you've got this beautiful format. What is your process for writing, and why does writer's block not exist for you?
It's funny about that comment. I was years ago, I was doing a country club gig. I would do their Sunday afternoon barbecue. And I'd rarely go out and, I would rarely go out and do a cover gig. I would do covers and my own songs. I would just mix them in for the very reason of what you just said. Because people are like, oh, it just fits in. They just think it's a song they don't know.
Right.
And I have the confidence to do that because I know that I write. I know I've worked long and hard on my craft as a songwriter. And I have enough validation from people to know my songs work, and and so I mix them in. But this one particular day, I did this Sunday afternoon, and I started off with a song of mine, and then another one, and then another one, and I would play 3 hours. I don't take breaks, and I would just play, and I played 3 hours of my own songs, and I saw a guy across the open field where I was playing. And I could see him, and he's like strumming along air guitar, and he's really leaning in, listening. And when I was all done, he comes walking up to me, and he goes, wow. He goes, man, I haven't heard some of those songs in a long time. And oh yeah. I said, yeah. I said, you like him? He goes, yeah, man. He goes, I just haven't heard him. He said, it was really great to hear. Great set. And I never said anything, but I just chuckled inside.
Yeah.
So I do get that. Often from people, and not to say that you're stealing somebody else's songs, but just that there's a comfort to them. There's a familiarity about them, and so I think I just write. It's funny. I listen to more music when I was younger than I do now. I don't listen to as much music now as I did when I was younger. And I just made a discovery the other day with my wife. I said, you know what? I think John Denver is one of the biggest influences on my writing and singing more than maybe anybody else.
Okay.
Because he's a good story writer, and that's what I do.
Yeah.
And his album Back Home Again, I could listen to that over and over and over, and I could sing every word of every song. And I think that influenced me far more than I've ever realized until just recently. So yeah, there was another part to that question again.
Well, what part of the country did you grow up in? Where exactly?
I'm all New York. All New York. But it's I get that too, because I wear boots every day in my life.
Yeah.
So I laugh when I do two things with that. One, I go in and out of style constantly. People are like, oh, you're so fashionable. I'm like, what are you wearing boots for? Nobody wears boots. I'm like, I wear boots. I wear boots every day.
Yeah.
And so I've got like 13, 14 pairs. I'm probably going to buy a pair here now before I go home. And it's funny coming here because when people find out I'm from New York, I'm sure they go, "Oh, he's wearing boots because he's in Austin."
Right.
No,
Yeah.
I wear boots because I wear boots.
Yeah.
But I often get, where are you from? Texas? Where are you from?
Yeah.
Because I have boots on and I'm in New York, and for whatever reasons, people said to me, "You sound like you're from the South when you sing," and I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know what that is or where that comes from, but it might just be of listening." my intonation, or guess, or my inflections might be just because of what I listen to all the time.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of Southern rock. Like, you know, in fact, I got to do a show with Marshall Tucker in September, and they pulled me out to sing "Can't You See" with them, and that was you know, 2025 was a good year. I came to South by. We did 2 showcases. I met a lot of people. It was really, really good. And then I opened up for Marshall Tucker and I sang "Can't You See" with him. I'm like, nah, I think this trumps South by Southwest. So, you know, and I'm still getting mileage out of that. People say, wait, did I see you sang with Marshall Tucker? You sang "Can't You See"? I'm like, yeah. How was that? I was like, it was cool. You know? So, and they were very, very gracious. And I've opened up, I've been very fortunate. I've supported and opened up for a lot of, you know, household name artists, you know, but that was by far the coolest moment, you know, of any of them. That was pretty cool.
You know, I heard a couple years ago, somebody mentioned the phrase that how you do anything is how you do everything. And when I was thinking about a lot of the questions I wanted to ask you, because I've thought so much about, there was a time, the last time I hung out with you in New York, a friend was visiting me, and I'll never forget this. I knew you were playing in this part of Manhattan. Or no, I know exactly what happened. I was walking home to the train, and I heard your voice coming out of a bar. I walked in. I'm like, oh my God, Artie. And I went back to my friend's hotel. She was just about to go to bed. She's like 7 months pregnant. She was on there in New York for a business trip. Knocked on her door. I was like, hey, let's go to this show.
Yeah.
We went in, and you were just, it was this, it's that very New York experience where you come off the sidewalk and you enter a whole other world inside the bar, and you'd created this environment. And I always remember, I'd seen one in I think a songwriting magazine, but you have this super cool guitar strap with these, they've made out these with like wood on the outside.
Yeah. Rosewood.
And I remember I'll never forget this. You invited me up and you passed me your guitar, right?
Yeah.
And this is, and I was thinking about this when I was watching you play, and you were talking about the artist Joe Alice who's going to follow you, and you were talking about what you enjoyed about her as an artist. But I was thinking about that moment, and who does that? The generosity of that, and it was this amazing memory to be able to get to guest in your set and play my original songs. It was that moment has always stuck with me because I've met lots of different people in this journey that I started, and that moment for me is singular. That sticks out, and that to me represents who you are as an artist. And I would think back to when I met you and how you treated my friend and myself, and how you, before I ever had heard of the term gatekeeping, you've never gate-kept anything. When I'd released a record of children's indie pop music, you advised me on that. You advised me on promoting that. You always picked up the phone. Have you always been like this? Is this something you learned from?
I was really mean for the most of my life. I wasn't. No. So what you're talking about to me is 2 things. I think you mentioned at the top. I did learn somewhere. I don't know. Somewhere along the line, I was just like, you just got to check your ego out of this stuff. Like you can't. I don't know. Like it doesn't serve. Like it doesn't serve. And I say specifically it doesn't serve because I do know that I have what I phrase as a service mentality. I'm here to serve other people. I'm not here for myself. And whether that's in dialogue or that's from the stage or that's, in life, I don't know. So somewhere I've just, you got to check your ego. I'm not always perfect with it. I'm sure it gets in the way here and there. Maybe unknowingly, maybe mindfully. I don't know. But I think the other part of what you're talking about is I do operate with an abundance mentality, which is, there's room for everybody. We can all have our space, and and I'm not here to withhold information. If I can help you, again, be in service to you in some way when you're doing something, then that benefits both of us. And as you're saying, oh, you did this for me, and it's something that sticks out for me. It's singular, and it's, and it's like, and it's why we're probably sitting here today. If I didn't do that, not if I didn't do that, you wouldn't be, but it's like, that's something that just deepens relationships and deepens connection. And so, I'm pretty, I would say something I learned was to accept and forgive people. Accept people for how they are, and forgive them when they do something that either offends you or is stupid in your mind or illogical or doesn't make sense, and forgive them if it jammed you up or got in your way. And then, look, if it's a repeated pattern, maybe you keep them at arm's length, but sometimes people just do things they shouldn't do. And so, I think that's helped me a lot, but I try to be a generally nice person. I look really mean, but I try to be a generally nice person. That's what you're talking about, that face. I know the face you mean. And that face has served me well in many occasions, where there could have been a threat of danger to my physical well-being or somebody else's. And with a look, I can change somebody's thinking or attitude about something. But I also think sometimes people don't approach me because they're like, I'm not talking to that guy. I've had people get to know me afterwards and go, when I saw you the first time, man, I was like, I'm not talking to that guy. He looks like he'll kill you. I'm like, yeah. I had a lady one time, I was doing a songwriting show. I was doing a songwriting show up in Greenwich, Connecticut. I was like producing a show with somebody, the owner. And she says, I think I was telling about that the other night. And we put those cards out in that place too, by the way. And because we had to create an environment, and we had to shape the behavior of the patrons coming in. But one night there were these two women sitting at a table, and we were getting ready to do the show, and she says, "Oh, come on, I want you to. These are two of my best customers." I'm like, "Okay." And there were two women, I don't know, in their 60s maybe, or I don't think they were 70. I think 50s, 60s, whatever they were. And the woman, the owner, introduces me, and one of them says, "You're a songwriter?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh." I said, "I don't look like a songwriter?" She says, "You look like you'd be in the mafia and kill people." That's what she said to me. So you know what I did? I leaned in real close to her and I went, "You're very perceptive." And I walked away and I didn't say another word to her. And I went up and I picked up my guitar, kind of like you said. I had that. I turned around, I picked up my guitar, I said, "Bring, welcome everybody to the songwriter show."
Oh my goodness.
So it works for and against me, but it's mostly fun and works for me. So
it's can you I believe at the time I met you, you were also working and am I getting the term right, as a crisis manager?
Well, I had many roles in my education life. I started as a classroom teacher, and then I was a dean in the school. And then after a bunch of years in that school, I left that school and I worked in the field, essentially, going from school to school. I was a behavior specialist. And then I ended my time with the DOE. I was the crisis manager for the whole borough of the Bronx.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
How does... Because again, like this is, it's, what is the word that I'm looking for? It'll come to me. The energy that you put out is, the only way I can describe it is that when I'm hanging out with you, there's an overwhelming feeling like everything's going to be A-okay. Like everything is going to be, great. And you, again, back to the how you do anything is how you do everything. When you're on stage, and I'd love to also talk to you about your acting as well when you're on set. when you're on stage, that the environment you're creating up there then is felt. And
Yeah.
everybody had such a great time.
Yeah.
And it was the way that you interacted with all of us. And before we started, you mentioned something, because it was a showcase. It was at In Cahoots. It's a great venue. And you mentioned something about you knew what your role was there. This is something I think that is so important, because I've always looked up to you and the way that you carry yourself as an artist, because I feel it's the example. Because I have met the opposite of that, and it makes it all the more striking as far as how you lead your artistic life. I would love it if you could share your thoughts on that, because I'm on your website. It's the stages that you've shared with people, right? Like that you sang lead on Can't You See with like that's it's
special.
amazing. It's very special.
Yeah.
And you're always so you're you. And I'm just curious, can you, for somebody who is starting, who's going to encounter people that might have a different way of acting, and I know I'm saying a lot of stuff here. You also mentioned as far as like coming from a place of service and forgiving people, but also this huge understanding of how people do things.
Yeah.
Can you, I'd love if you could talk a little bit about that, as far as for an advice for somebody who's maybe in an education position or is doing something different, but has a guitar and is writing songs and is ready to step into that world.
I mean, look, I think a lot of it has to do with why you're doing what you're doing. And it doesn't matter if you're a teacher, a lawyer, a doctor, a musician, a songwriter, an actor. It doesn't matter to me. I can say this. I balanced my education life with my musical life for decades. Mm-hmm. I was playing 200 nights a year for 25 years. And in that 200 nights, that could be anything from a solo to a duo to a full band thing. That could be anything from a cafe or a pizza parlor or a private event or somebody's backyard to a dedicated music venue and a festival, whatever it may have been. I would say during those years, I was a working musician. And I was raising a family and I had 3 kids and married and, a dog and a house and a mortgage. And, there was you just have to find a balance. But I think for me, it's always it's a passion, right? It's not, I loved what I did by day. Mm-hmm. I loved my entire educational life. I loved what I did at night. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And really they were the same thing, because I was just interacting with people and trying to reach them.
Yeah.
So I think it's about passion. If you're playing music because you want to be rich and famous, you're probably not going to check your ego out, and you're not probably going to. I mean, there are plenty of people who set out, that's what they want to do, and they succeed. Yeah. And that's what they become. Uh-huh. I don't know how happy they are or aren't. I have no idea. But for me, like, I don't ever feel musically like I have a choice to play music. It's just what I do. Mm. Like it chose me. I didn't choose it. And it's lonely most of the time. It's lonely. It's a lonely pursuit, but it's a pursuit that I've been engaged in for a few decades now, and or maybe more. And I can't imagine anything that could happen between now and whenever I expire that is going to make me go, I'm not doing this. It's unfair. I'm tired of this. Like it's a relentless, never-ending pursuit that plenty of people are going to try and get you to stop doing along the way for a variety of reasons. And I have friends of mine, oh, you're still playing music? I'm like, yeah, What do you want to be, a rock star? And I'm like, no, man, I am a rock star. You know, like, no, like, because I'm not a household name, and because whatever. But it's like, yeah, and it's, you know, and I don't always go into it, but I laugh, and I, you know, and last night I signed autographs. It's like, you know, people come up, okay, take a picture with you. Can you sign my CD for me? I've signed T-shirts. I've signed body parts. I've signed, you know, whatever. And you know, funny story, when my kids were little, yeah, I'd go out and do a show or something. Next day, breakfast or dinner. Oh, how was it? And I would talk to my wife and tell her how it was now. And I'd say, oh yeah, I was signing autographs and taking pictures of people. And fast forward a few years, and my oldest son, I had him come with me. I was opening up for Kenny Wayne Shepherd. And I brought him to the show, and I let him work with my merch table. And I came off the stage, and I'm in the green room, and he texts me, says, you need to come out here. Some guy wants to take a picture and wants your autograph. I'm like, all right, I'm on my way out. And I come out, and I go, where is he? He's like, really? I was like, what? I said, where's the guy? He's like, right there, the guy with the green shirt, you know, whatever he was wearing. Yeah. And I said, oh, okay. So I walk over to him. I said, hey, man. I said, you know, how you doing? I could get talking to him. We walk back to the table. Yeah. And I get a CD out, and I sign it. I autograph it. And then I hand the guy's phone to my son. I said, yeah, take a picture of us. He takes a picture. And the guy walks away. And my son says, what was that? I was like, what do you mean? He goes, you know that guy, right? I'm like, I know that guy? No, I don't know that guy. I just met him. Yeah. He's like, you don't know him. I was like, no, I don't know him. I said, why are you asking me if I know him? Yeah. He's like, people really want your autograph? I was like, yeah. I said, I don't know. I don't get it either. But yeah, they do. So, you know, that was, again, a fun little moment, you know. But listen, man, I try and just be humble. And all the people that I've been fortunate enough to share the stage with, they have all been nothing but delightful, with the exception of one group who I will not mention. But one group, they were not. But everybody else has been nothing but just warm and pleasant and kind and generous. And I just think, man, if I'm ever at that level, that's the only way I could possibly be. You know, I couldn't see being, you know, I did a little thing here at South by the other day. They had this little JBL booth, and I got up and I played a few songs, and there was a guy up there just before me who was playing with his daughter, who was like 8 or 9, playing the harmonica. She was playing the harmonica, and they came back in. There was a time lapse between when they finished playing and when I played, and they came back in and saw me playing, and then they stood there and they watched and listened. And afterward, we engaged in a little conversation. But the first thing I did was, when the father said hello to me, I said hello to him, and then I turned to his daughter. I was like, and how are you? I said, that was some pretty good harp playing you were doing there, you know? Yeah. And I engaged her immediately and accepted her as an equal, even though she's a 7-year-old girl playing harmonica. Yeah. Like, because to me that's important. Like, we have to be supportive of one another, you know, in the creative art world. We have to be supportive. And so I don't know, it's just the way I'm wired, I guess. I don't know. But I think it comes down to passion. I think you have to be passionate about what you're doing. If you're doing it just to do it because you think it's cool, and it's fine. I know a couple of people like that, and I just watch them, and I'm like, you know, I don't know. They might get far, but I think more often than not, they won't, you know, because I don't think they have passion. I think they have an idea of what's cool, and they're trying to build off of that. I don't think it's, I think it's what is that expression? It's a house of cards, you know? So I don't know. That's kind of my thought about it. Yeah.
So I was reading on your website. I thought this was really cool because obviously I know you as Artie Tobia. Can you talk to me about Redtail Revival? I thought it was so cool. You said that it represents freedom and resilience.
Yeah. So you know, it's funny about the Artie Tobia thing. It's my name. Unless I go to Italy, then I find out Tobia, not Tobia, Tobia, not Tobia. Italiano, I is a Isa, Tobia. It's very funny. It's very, very funny to tell somebody how to say your name that you've been saying your whole life. Yeah. But so, you know, the Artie Tobia Band is the moniker I was under for probably 15 years or more, which was never, ever my intention. It was never my desire. It was never my intention. So I had Blackberry Jam. I had 5 O'Clock Shadow. We had the Rattle Daddies at one point because we were all fathers. We knew fathers and we all had kids. We came up with the Rattle Daddies, which I thought was a pretty cool name. And then that's the only 3 bands I really ever, had any longevity. But I was doing a 15-year, I did a 15-year weekly residency in New York City. And simultaneously, I did a 15-year weekly residency in Greenwich on Tuesday nights and Wednesday nights. And so people would come in and they go, "Oh, what's the name of the band?" But we don't really have a name, because that wasn't always a steady. It wasn't always a steady core. It was always Mark and I on guitar. But first, it started out as a duo with my buddy Brent, and then he moved up further into Connecticut. Mark moved back up from Nashville at that point, and so he kind of stepped in, and then that morphed into the band in the city. And sometimes you had different drummer, and sometimes you had different bass player, and sometimes, then we kind of locked in with Stewart on drums for a while. But people said, "What's the name of the band?" "Well, we don't really have a name, but what's your name?" "Artie Tobia." "So you're the Artie Tobia band?" I'm like, "Yeah, I guess so." And almost by default, we just became the Artie Tobia band. And I was never comfortable with it. I never liked calling it that for a couple of reasons. One, because it has to do a bit with ego. It's like, I don't need to have my name out in front of everything. I always had a band with a name. 5 O'Clock Shadow, Blackberry Jam, and I'm much more comfortable in that identity. I'd rather be the lead singer of than or the songwriter for the band so-and-so than be the Artie Tobia band, written by Artie Tobia, sung by Artie Tobia, played by Artie Tobia. Like, I don't need that. And then I do find a lot of times people have trouble with my name. Looking at it visually, you can relate to this, I'm sure. Right? so yours is longevity. Mine is just variation of pronunciation. Tobia, Tobia. They put an S on it. Once in a IHOP, I heard them toboggan 5 toboggan, and I turned to my wife and said, "I think that's us." She says, "No," they said that wasn't our name. I said, "Pretty sure." And I go up and I said, "I think you just called me. What's the name? Tobia?" "I have a toboggan." "Yeah, that's me." I'm like, okay. And there was nobody else. I was clearly that's how it got written down. And so. I just find it is hard for people to get. They put an S on it. They do all kinds of things. My wife's had it. She's been called Tobias. They turned it into some kind of Latin variation. And so for that reason too, it's kind of like I kind of want to get away. So I had a brainstorming session with my kids and their friends one time 2 summers ago, and I was like, I really want to change the band name. I want to come up with a name that really captures. And so through that brainstorming session with a group of 20 somethings, and I think it was my son in the end who nailed it exactly. Redtail Revival. So my record label is Redtail Records. That story goes back to when I was a kid. My brother and I found a red-tailed hawk that had gotten injured in a fight with another red-tailed hawk. We were walking through these woods and we found it. We went back to get a box to retrieve it and maybe bring it somewhere. By the time we got back, it was dead. And but I always, because of that moment of this bird of prey, and it was massive. This thing was massive when we found it. So much so that we didn't really know what it was at the time. We found out later. And so I've always had this connection to the red-tailed hawk. So my son and his friends, we brainstormed. He came up with that. And then very serendipitously, when I started looking into the red-tailed hawk and the meanings of it, I was like, oh my God, this aligns so perfectly. Like, I write a lot of songs that are about the road. I write a lot of songs that are about open space and freedom. Lyrically, if you look through, I use blue sky frequently in songs. It's just, I don't know why, but I do. And then just Revival, I think speaks to the resilience it takes for the longevity of what I've been doing, you know, because I'm getting up there. You know, I'm getting on in years, but I don't grow tired of the shit. That's not said. I don't have moments where I'm down, I'm lonely, or I'm frustrated, or I think about maybe giving up, but I also just know that's just a moment. It will pass, you know? So, but that's right. Okay. So we changed that up about a year and a half ago, and it's been really well received. And it's just easier for me. And right now I still have my name kind of attached, and on stage I usually say we're Redtail Revival.
Yeah.
But we get introduced a lot of times as Artie Tobia and Redtail Revival. I'd like to get to a point where, because all my albums are released under my name, because I didn't release them as Artie Tobia band. I just released them as Artie Tobia.
Sure.
So and my name is still that. So until I know that my name is synonymous with Redtail Revival, so if somebody put Redtail Revival in, I would come up. And I don't know. I haven't checked that in quite some time to find out if that's true or not. But yeah, that's the origin of it. And the red-tailed hawk, to me, you know, it's spiritual. It's intense. It's got a freedom in its ability to move around and be a bird of prey. And, you know, so it really unknowingly aligned far more, you know, and I think I'm very organic in my approach. And you'd said before about being from New York. It's like, we had the benefit of traveling across the country when I was a kid, 2 different times in a motorhome. So I've been in every state but Alaska and Hawaii.
Wow.
And I think between that and watching Westerns with my father when I was a kid, I think I just have this whole Southern Western, or maybe, I don't know if it's Southern and Western or just Western and Southern. I don't know what, but I think that's why the boots, like people, why do you wear boots? I'm like, you know, I don't put that much thought into why. I just wear them. I don't know. But
I remember those boots in the village. Yeah, it's who you are.
Yeah, no, it is.
Feels
It's just that's why I say I laugh here, because I'm sure people are like, that New Yorker's wearing boots. He's in Austin. It's like, nah, man, I just wear boots. But boots, and I like good hats. I left my hat home this trip, and I intention of buying one here, and I never got to do it. But I met a guy yesterday on the street, Philip. He's from somewhere here in Texas, and he had a nice wide brim pork pie, and he told me where he got it. So I may try and go there today.
Well, Artie, it's been amazing to have you on the podcast. I'll never forget the fact that you donated your ponytail back in 2004 to Locks of Love at that event.
You remember that?
That was extraordinary. Before we wrap this up, what's next on the horizon? You just crushed it at South by.
Yeah, we got a nice little festival run going right now. So we get back up to New York tomorrow. And then not this weekend, but next weekend, the 27th, we're at singer-songwriter Cape May, which is like almost like a mini South by. It's a 3-day conference, but same design. There's industry people, there's panels, there's keynote, and then there's performance. And I just got asked yesterday, actually, I'm going to be playing I'm going to do a solo set for the kickoff party or whatever they're calling it. So that'll be nice. And then the full band will be there on Friday night. And then after that, we go to a festival down in Florida on April 18th, the Love Earth Festival, the Landapalooza, but it's now called the Love Earth Festival, I think, is the transition they're making. So that's down in Florida. And then we go up to Utica in early May for the Daniel Barden Mudfest, which is Mark's son, as you know that story. And they're starting to develop a little music festival parallel to the Mudfest. That's an event to memorialize Daniel. And so that's in May. And then I've got a bunch of irons in the fire that I'm waiting to hear back from for the rest of the spring and the summer and into the fall. Some festivals and different things and some other venues. But so and then beyond that, I got 2 albums I'm working on, a solo acoustic that I think are songs that I've written that are not the band may not necessarily be necessary. There may be some light treatment, but it'll be probably Mark and I primarily. And then yeah, I might put a snare on something. I might put a cello on something. I might
Sure.
put a mandolin. So but it's going to essentially be a solo acoustic album. And then we're going to do the first full band album that'll come out with the Redtail Revival name. And so if all goes well, those will both come out in 2026. I'm kind of in pre-production for both of them.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, I have this idea of doing a straight blues album, like just all blues.
Wow.
Because that's a favorite genre of mine. And I've written a bunch. So I have a pretty large. I got 60 songs released, but I probably have another probably 75 or more that I haven't recorded yet. So like I have plenty of material to draw from, you know. So writing is not an issue. I just had a great opportunity to write a song for a film, a little short film. Tracy, the woman you saw singing with us last night, she's an award-winning screenplay writer, and she did a little short film through Sundance. She's involved with Sundance somehow, and she said, "Hey, can you write a song for me for this?" And so she gave me the background on the characters. She gave me the script. And I wrote a song that she's going to play out over the credits. And that was a fun little exercise. You know, it was a fun little exercise to write specifically for something like that. Like, that's not how I generally... Though I had the opportunity to speak to Neil Giraldo the other day. You know, who's Pat Benatar's husband and guitar player. And he was here at doing something with Artists for Action. And he said, I told him that. And I said, yeah, it's so weird. I wrote a title. And I said, it was so weird. I came up with the title first, and then I wrote the song. And he looked at me and goes, that's strange to you? I said, yeah, that's the first time I've ever done that. He goes, it's the only way I write. I said, what do you mean? He goes, I'll write 250 song titles, and then I'll pick the one I like the best, and I'll write a song. Wow. I'm like, really? So I thought it was really cool to hear his process. And I don't, that's the first time I ever did that.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, so that's what's on the horizon. And you said it earlier, but just also on the horizon is I've just started getting back into acting, and I've been very, very fortunate. I've had a couple of small little opportunities, and so we'll see where that goes.
That's
maybe I'll be the next Chris Christopherson. Who knows? But,
well, Artie, I'm so excited for people to hear your episode, and thank you again for coming by. And I'd love if you could take us out with a song.
Yeah, we can do that. And
awesome.
I will say this to you too, for anybody that might be listening, you know, don't let anybody deter you, and don't give up. If it's really in your heart, stick with it. You know, don't let anybody. There's going to be plenty of people out there that want to tell you stop. But those people say to me, "Oh, you're still doing that?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, "Oh, I gave up on my dreams a long time ago." I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry." You know, like, don't. You know, go back and chase them. You know, and I love the pursuit. So, yeah. But I'm happy to do a song.
Awesome. Well, I think this is a beautiful place to end it. Remember, it's always the right time to start, and it's too late to quit. Thank you, Artie.
Yeah.
Looking right back at me, and you see I've been weeping.
Good? Sounds great. It sounds unbelievable in here. It's incredible how it sounds in here. All right.
In your own time, we are rolling.
All right, so this song just starts. So you're just gonna hear me come in with a strum and a. I'm just gonna come in all together, like the drummer's counting it in.
I believe things happen for a reason, and this might be my season. I too love the smell of the beaches. I wanna see how long fates reaches. I see you in front of me. I see you looking right back at me. Can it be you've been weeping? I wanna know, are you happy? We're hanging on for 21 long years. Had some close calls, cried a river of tears. I believe when the time is right, our two worlds, they will collide. And we will hug each other, and we will cry. I see you laughing and dancing. I see that you've been smoking and drinking. I wanna see inside of your soul. I wanna just what you've been thinking. Hanging on for 21 long years. Had some close calls, cried a river of tears. I believe when the time is right, our two worlds, they will collide. And we will hug each other and we will cry. I'm so glad to have you in my life. Just wish we had lost so much time. I hear time can't stand still, so we can catch up. I know we will. We're hanging on for 21 long years. Had some close calls, cried a river of tears. I believe when the time is right, our two worlds, they will collide. And we will hug each other and we will cry. We will hug each other and we will cry. You love horses and so do I. Maybe one day we can ride side by side into a sunset. 'Cause I know this story, it ain't over yet. We're hanging on for 21 long years. Had some close calls, cried a river of tears. I believe when the time is right, our two worlds, they will collide. And we will hug each other and we will cry. We will hug each other and we will cry. All will be forgiven when we cry. We'll have a new beginning when we cry. All will be forgiven when we cry. When we cry. When we cry. When we cry. Each other and we will cry.
Oh, that was good. That was great. That was amazing. Thank you for listening to the Too Late to Quit podcast, a 424 Records and Rude Rudy production. Copyright 2026, all rights reserved.